I'm walking down the street. Kid crosses the street and goes to the other side. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm 76 years old, okay? I'm carrying a briefcase. I got on a jacket. Why is he afraid of me? I walk into a store. The attendant doesn't attend to me, and it's obvious that I'm a customer looking to shop. I want to buy a watch. I want to buy a pair of slacks. He thinks I'm not going to spend any money, or he thinks I'm going to shoplift or whatever. Why is he doing that? The cop pulls me over. He comes with his hand on his holster to the side of my vehicle and asks me to put my hands on the steering wheel. Again, I'm 76 years old. I got a PhD in economics from MIT. I got a briefcase on the front seat. The New York Times is visible. And yet he's treating me like I'm a thug or I'm a criminal. I have to take that into account. I get hardened from such experiences. I begin to anticipate that they're likely to happen to me. I begin to ask myself when this or that affront, which is the commonplace of social existence, affronts, rudeness, people who don't recognize you for who you are. Did they do it because I'm black? I don't know whether that is yes or no, and I live that life. I'm in the university. I've been doing it for a long time. The kids come and go. Every year is another cohort. And they come in there and they want to be black and they want to be gay and they want to be whatever they want to be. And they come with these blinkers on. And what I want to tell them is you now have the opportunity to acquaint yourself with the best that's been written and thought in human culture. Get out of the box. You came in as this or that. You shouldn't leave merely having heard about this or that. Don't hang out in the Afro Studies department with respect to my colleagues. I don't mean any disrespect. I mean the students have an opportunity to grow, to broaden themselves, to read the literatures of other cultures, to think about the lives of other people, and they should seize that opportunity. So I tell them that. On the other hand, you know, as I get older and I think back on my life and I think forward about my legacy, I do want to be seen as someone who contributed to African American life and culture and someone whose work advanced the agenda, et cetera, of quote unquote my people. And I ask myself this question, I say, you know, what does it mean even when I say my people? What is a people? And are African Americans a people in the sense in which one thinks about a people? I mean, Jewish people, that's a people. Are African Americans a people? We have cultural touchstones. We have a set of shared historical narratives. You know, whatever. But how thick is that? And you know, Irish Americans, Italian Americans. If I'd gone back 100 years and I found a typical Irish person walking around the streets of New York or Boston or Baltimore or whatever, and I'd ask them about it, I mean, they would have had a very elaborate account of their peoplehood, and it would have made a whole lot of sense in 1910, and it would make no sense whatsoever in 2010. Well, it might be that Glenn Loury's account of what his life is and what it meant makes a lot of sense in 2010, and no sense whatever in 2110. And even Coleman Hughes is not going to be alive in 2110, so I take some comfort in that. No, I don't. No, I don't. I'm just kidding, everybody. That's a joke, okay? Relax.
Turn down the temperature. When I feel so as a white guy, there's not much that I've ever thought about in regards to my race or gender. Just as kind of like the default, you just are, right? So if I do something bad, I'm never, you know, portraying white people negatively. If I do something stupid or I mess something up, I'm not like portraying men negatively. I'm just kind of like the default for the United States, at least. When I listen to, because I do a lot of race exploration or a lot of racial issues, obviously the George Floyd riots and everything, and I've got other black content creators, African American and black immigrant content creators
Terrific.
That are obviously bring wildly different perspectives. One of the challenging things that I feel like I see is whenever I'm talking to somebody who is black and they have this, there's these competing ideas of where I would like to be an individual. I don't want to see race as being like an essential part of who I am, but also it has had a heavy impact on me. It feels like there is this, it feels like if you're thinking of a world where race doesn't matter, I feel like we view our identities as these internal things where if it doesn't matter to me, it doesn't matter. But I feel like there's a really difficult, there's like, or not difficult, it's an impossible hurdle to overcome where you can view yourself in a certain way internally, but if every other person views you in a certain way, it doesn't matter how you view yourself. That there, not to say, and I can't speak to any of your personal experiences, but like it could be possible that there are two conventions being held, and one is you know, a bunch of people hanging out who are black people from the south side of Chicago who are all high school dropouts, and then the other convention is 99% white people who are PhD economists, and which group would feel more welcoming to you? I feel like these are like, there's a lot of external validation of race or external reinforcement of like the race somebody is, so that no matter how much you might want to think that I'm not white, I'm not black, I'm not whatever, if everybody else doesn't buy into the same type of idea that you do, you could never truly kind of escape it, is I guess the feeling I get. And then it feels like there's a lot of internal and external struggle over, you know, what is that, I guess, what does that even mean, or how should you live, or what should you do? I don't know if you get emails from people that watch you or anything, but yeah. I've had black friends tell me things like, yeah, like sometimes I want to be above the race, or I don't want to think about this. But then you get emails from black fans who are like, I love that you do this particular thing. There's not very many other black creators in this space. And it's like, well, how can I not? Yeah.
Oh, no, I get those emails, and you put your finger on something I think that's really a deeply important truth, which is that we don't control the racial thing. It's not something you can decide. It's a convention. In my book, pardon me, The Anatomy of Racial Inequality, Harvard University Press, 2002 is the original version.
What's the IBN or publishing number? I know. Okay.
A second edition issued in paperback in 2022, so it has legs.
Okay.
But I say race is a social convention, and it's this thing where marks on human bodies come to have social significance. They don't have to intrinsically be of any meaningful importance. If people think they're important, that's enough. You don't know whether or not a person is reacting to you based upon your race or not. But if you know that there are people who are taking your brown skin, your broad nose, your thick lips, your kinky hair as significant, then that becomes significant even though intrinsically those things are not significant. So I'm walking down the street. The kid crosses the street and goes to the other side. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm 76 years old, okay? I'm carrying a briefcase. I got on a jacket. Why is he afraid of me? Okay? I walk into a store. The attendant doesn't attend to me, and it's obvious that I'm a customer looking to shop. I want to buy a watch. I want to buy a pair of slacks. He thinks I'm not going to spend any money, or he thinks I'm going to shoplift or whatever. Why is he doing that? The cop pulls me over. He comes with his hand on his holster to the side of my vehicle and asks me to put my hands on the steering wheel. Again, I'm 76 years old. I got a PhD in economics from MIT. I got a briefcase on the front seat. The New York Times is visible. And yet he's treating me like I'm a thug or I'm a criminal. I have to take that into account. I get hardened from such experiences. I begin to anticipate that they're likely to happen to me. I begin to ask myself when this or that affront, which is the commonplace of social existence, affronts, rudeness, people who don't recognize you for who you are, occurs to me. When I went to the National Press Club for the event, and when the receptionist didn't see that I was, you know, a person who was an important participant, but rather treated me like I was an attendant. Did they do it because I'm black? I don't know whether that is yes or no, and I live that life. Of course I'm black, but my blackness could be, in an alternative universe, completely meaningless, like my shoe size or whatever. Would that we were in such an alternative universe? How do we get to such an alternative universe?
I think all that to say, wrapping around to the thing that started this tangent off for Kamala Harris, I think one of the things that bothers me the most is I know there's a big chunk of people that are very eager to carry that Kamala Harris isn't black narrative, at least in the online space, but these are the exact same type of people that would call her an N-word. And I'm like, geez, it's kind of convenient that you can have both worlds where you can discount her race in this sense, but like when it really comes down to it, you're going to disparage her or attack her like she's just any other black person you'd see.
Yeah. Like I said, she has chosen to be black. She could have chosen otherwise. Do we honor her choice? She went to Howard University. She joined the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, which is I almost said notorious. a famous black women's social organization. She has cultivated her, you know, I'm not going to rehearse the whole argument. She can choose to be black if she wants to. I'm okay with that. You know, what does that mean is another thing altogether. Is she a tribune of my people? No, I wouldn't put it that way at all. I would rather discount the meaning of first black woman president than disparage her personally for a set of identity choices that she's made. But I would stress they're choices. She could have chosen differently. Should I resent her? I'll tell you a story. Growing up, and I tell the story in my book, I have a friend named Woody. He's my best friend as a kid coming up. And he's a very light-skinned guy. He could pass for white without trying. But he's black because, well, it's a long story. You have to read the book. But the basic idea is his parents are both Negro people in the classical one-drop rule sense that they had African-American ancestors, and were that known to anybody, they would be thought of as being black, both of his parents, and yet they were both very fair of skin color and so on. And so his whole family was passing for white in the neighborhood that I grew up in. I say passing for white in the sense that they were allowing other people to think that they were white. They were not disclosing their connection to the black people. Anyway, I loved Woody, but I thought because he had the option of passing for white, an option which he rejected, but nevertheless had the option, he didn't understand fully what it meant to be, as it were, trapped in blackness. You're black no matter what. He always could opt out. I couldn't. I have to admit that somewhere inside of me, I resented him for that. I resented him for having the option of choice. That's not fair, that's not pretty, but it's the honest truth of the matter. And I think a lot of the people whom you're gonna, Janet Jackson most famously of recent vintage, who questioned whether Kamala Harris is white, that at the root of that is something like what I felt about Woody, which is she's chosen to be black. Of course, we're gonna go to her motives. Chosen out of convenience, chosen because it was the most career promoting thing to do, chosen because it was cool. But nevertheless chosen. She could have gone otherwise. We resent her for that.
Right.
And I think people do.